We good? Sound check, we're good?
Yeah.
All right, let's get started. I'm Jeff Anderson. I am one of the attorneys representing this very courageous minor and her family. I'm also here with Stacy Benson, my esteemed co-counsel. Also along with us in this case is Pat Stone King in our office. Kids are safest when predators are caught and jailed. Anton Tony Lazzaro is now caught and jailed. So is Gisela Medina. So first, I want to beg anyone and urge everyone who has seen or suspected or suffered any of these crimes by Lazzaro to call the U.S. Attorney and their office who has been prosecuting both Lazzaro and Medina and investigating these crimes for over a year. And Lazzaro and Medina are now caught, jailed, and being prosecuted by criminal indictment because this courageous minor found a way and had the courage to speak her voice and post something over a year ago about Lazzaro and Medina. And that posting set into a series of events that now bring us here today, standing with and on behalf of her and her family. And this morning, we filed on behalf of her as a minor and her father and mother a civil suit that names Lazzaro as a trafficker and for his coercion of her and others, and a conspiracy that we'll talk about to silence her and do further harm, and to continue the criminal enterprise in which Lazzaro is what we consider to be the ringmaster. And so, first I want to give praise to this minor Doe for speaking up and posting something that led to a series of events that we'll be talking about, in which her parents came to know something had been done to her by Lazzaro, and it was very serious. And as perplexed as they were, they had enough courage and minor Doe as well to do something about it and to make the call. And that's why we urge everybody who suspects or has suffered or has knowledge of these crimes and this enterprise to call. Because 1 year ago, they did. And the minor Doe identified in this lawsuit is the one that first gave voice to the truth of this enterprise and what Lazzaro had been doing to her and at least a half a dozen other kids. Yeah. So we're here because they were busted and in praise of this courage, and it's time for more to be revealed. And through this suit we hope that Doe and this family can take comfort that they have done something to not only alert the public to the magnitude of the peril that has been in this enterprise that existed, and others that are ultimately involved in it, in a conspiracy and a trafficking enterprise. In this lawsuit we filed this morning entitled J.A. Father Doe and J.A. Minor Doe 1 versus Anton Joseph Lazzaro. Lazzaro is named as the Ringmaster. And Lazzaro had been enticing and engaging and conspiring to engage youth in his sex trafficking enterprise for some time. And what we know is included in this complaint, and that in May, actually when Doe was around 14, Gisela Medina began to groom her. Gisela Medina is then an adult. And it was she that ultimately enticed her to Lazzaro, and in May of 2020, this complaint sets forth how Lazzaro, with the help of Medina, began to groom this minor, this teenager. It's no secret that Lazzaro is a powerful political figure, a prominent entrepreneur, a wealthy businessman and political figure. He's also not only a prominent political figure, he's a profiteer and a perverse predator. And as we set forth in this complaint, he trafficked this youth as well as many others. We also identify in the complaint coercion, masterminded by Lazzaro. And the coercion that we identify is that in late July of 2020, Minor Doe's father received a call from attorney Daniel Adkins after Minor Doe had posted something in social media about Lazzaro. And at that time, on behalf of Lazzaro and Medina, this attorney, Daniel Adkins, and his partner, Gimpler, then began an effort to not only coerce silence, but to allow this enterprise to continue. We also cite, and you'll hear more about that, we also cite in the complaint sex trafficking of a minor by Lazzaro and his colleagues, obstruction, and that obstruction in the complaint identifies the attempts by Lazzaro to silence this victim, this minor, and this minor's family, and to pay hush money, and to gag her and to gag her parents, so that the public wouldn't know, so that the police would not know, and so that the enterprise of sex trafficking that had been ongoing and so robust could continue and would. We also identify in this civil lawsuit that was filed this morning in federal district court, conspiracy. And the conspiracy is, again, Lazzaro at the center of it as what we call the ringmaster, conspiring with Medina and the two lawyers to not only continue the enterprise that had been ongoing, but to silence this victim and this family and coerce and entice them by offering to pay money and threatening them actually to sue them for defamation. And let me talk about that. I also, before we go to that coercion and that conspiracy, I'm holding up a couple of pictures of Lazzaro that just kind of give a pictorial flavor of some of the things he audaciously posts about who he is and how he is, and the money and the power and the audacity that he has. Here's a picture of him atop his jet, and another picture that he posted that we retrieved where he's in his underwear holding large bundles of cash, because that's what he used, his power, his prominence, his influence, and his political influence in many political circles to coerce, to entice, and to continue to do so with the aiding and abetting by others around him. So, to the coercion and attempt to silence this courageous family and this courageous Minor Doe. On July 29th, 2020, an email is sent by Daniel Adkins, the North Star Criminal Defense, to the father after the posting is made known, obviously, to them. And in it, he says to the father, as I indicated by text a moment ago, I've just been forwarded a series of messages via social media wherein Minor Doe very aggressively seeks to defame our clients. Regardless of the truth or falsity of these communications, they will make any effort to purchase the peace between the parties. In other words, purchase silence. And execute no defamation stipulation for the benefit of both parties. All but impossible. Please advise according blank, Minor Doe, accordingly, and please stand by for a first draft of such an agreement. And that agreement is this non-disclosure, non-disparagement agreement. It's 5 pages, prepared by Lazzaro in concert with Gisela Medina. And on the last page, it requires the signature of both Minor Doe and her father. And I'm going to share some of the pertinent parts of this because this is a part of the coercion. And this is a part of the conspiracy. And if this was done or attempted to be done to this Minor Doe, how many more are there out there that have been silenced or intimidated and continue to be by his political power, his influence, his money, and his connections? It's really scary what they did and tried to do here. It's really scary. And it's really harmful what they did to so many young people that we know of so far, and how many more are out there we don't know. But here's what we do know. This non-disparagement agreement says, to hold that up, says that whereas Mr. Lazzaro and Minor Doe had a consensual interaction in the recent past. Lazzaro is so audacious and believes he has so much control over this youth and her parents and all those around him that he admits in this document, seeking silence, of course, criminal sexual conduct. In this non-disclosure agreement that he sent over in this effort to silence Doe and her parents, he goes on to state, and his attorneys, Gempler and Adkins, are the ones that are the ones acting on Lazzaro's and Medina's behalf here. It states, whereas Minor Doe has made disparaging social media posts or otherwise public commentary disparaging and defaming Ms. Medina and or Mr. Lazzaro. So now they're referring to the media posts that they want to suppress the voice of this minor and her parents, so no further posts or no further information can be made public. To silence them, to gag them, to enable him and her to continue this enterprise, this sex trafficking enterprise. In the same agreement, there is language included that whereas upon execution of this document, in other words, once Minor Doe and her dad sign it, and in further consideration, blank, that is Minor Doe, agrees that she will not disclose the nature of her interaction with Mr. Lazzaro to the general public. Translation, to the public on social media, to the police, and to others. Gag order, silence. Continue the conspiracy to sex traffic for his perverse and predatory pleasure. And finally, the agreement says, whereas in consideration Minor Doe will not disparage or defame either Mr. Lazzaro or Ms. Medina's name to the public. In other words, if you do, we will sue you for defamation. And if you don't sign this, you're in trouble. So think of how scary it was to have been enticed, to have been recruited by the adult Medina, to have been a teenager, then under the power and the control and the predatory and I think perverse power that Lazzaro had over this youth, and now to be threatened with a lawsuit and to be coerced into attempted silence. Well, she wouldn't be, and she didn't, and they didn't, and that's why we're here. And that's why Lazzaro and Medina are behind bars and being prosecuted, and that's why this lawsuit has been brought. And I can say, and to this Minor Doe and to their parents, take comfort. You have, by having reported this in July, at the end of July, when you got this agreement and when they tried to intimidate you, you had the wisdom to call us in July 29th of 2020. And at that time, when we heard what had been done to this minor and what had Lazzaro and Medina had tried to do to the parents, who had known really nothing about this until this all came to bear on July 29th, we then looked at this and said, this is a serious felony. This is a serious crime. And this needs to be reported immediately. And they did. That's why we're here. That's why they're in jail. Because at the end of July in 2020, Minor Doe and her parents had the courage and the bravery to speak up and to take action, to call us. And now we know that they're behind bars and others are exposed, and this ring is exposed because they spoke up. That's why we encourage witnesses, whistleblowers, and those who have suffered these crimes to come forward, because you can get help. And Minor Doe has now begun a process of reprocessing the exploitation of her and has an understanding that it's not her fault and getting help. And the parents stand with her today and hoping, as we do, that they can take comfort that they have done something to protect so many other kids that would have been trafficked and exploited by Lazzaro in this enterprise, and so many others like him. And so, amongst this horror that we now know has been revealed, and some of which is in this complaint, we take comfort in the fact that some of the predators are behind bars and awaiting trial on the criminal case, and that we can stand with and for these survivors of sexual abuse and trafficking and their family, knowing that in the truth there is power. And this is all about the recovery of power and the revelation of truth. And if they hadn't made the call to us over a year ago, we wouldn't be here today. And they wouldn't be behind bars. So, more power to them and every survivor that comes forward and every family member that supports him or her. And more to be revealed about this. And Stacy Benson, anything that you think needs to be added here to what we have been discussing?
Aside from what Jeff said, the courage and the bravery that this survivor displayed is humbling. Anybody who has information should please call law enforcement. Tony Lazzaro and Gisela Medina, they stole her freedom for profit. And hopefully through this process, Minor Doe can get and recover the power and the control that was stolen from her as a child.
And we commend the U.S. Attorney's Office who are prosecuting these folks. And the investigation done by them and the FBI that has been ongoing since the report was made a year ago. And any information should be made and reported to them. And that is Assistant Major Crimes Chief Laura Provenzino, Assistant U.S. Attorney Angela Munoz, and Assistant U.S. Attorney Emily Polacek. And their office is prosecuting these folks, and we're in hot pursuit of them, and we're going to continue to hunt these folks down every single day in some way, armed with the courage of survivors like this family and this youth that spoke up and spoke truth, and truth to power. So with that, we'll take questions.
Jeff, just to go over this timeline again really quickly, they called you guys, and you encouraged them to go to the authorities?
Yes.
And then they went to, was it the FBI or the Wright County?
Let's put it this way. As soon as they called us and we learned what was being done, what had been done, and what they were trying to do to get them to sign this agreement, we immediately facilitated their report to law enforcement, and it went to ultimately the appropriate law enforcement agencies through the system. And we're not going to get into that agency and who the report was made to, but it was made, and it was made promptly, and we facilitated it and encouraged them to make it.
That was the very first that law enforcement heard about it, was that?
That was it.
Okay, and then one other thing, did the father learn about this through the non-disclosure thing that the lawyer tried to push on? Was that the first that he had heard about any of this?
Yeah, first the report is to be able to know that over a year ago this family contacted us and we were able to help them make a report to law enforcement is why I do this. It's why we're here and why we've been doing this for as long as we have. And that just fills my heart with hope and gratitude. And then second, what was your second question?
so the father, did the daughter
Yes.
talk with the father, or did this whole something?
The parents did not know Lazzaro had been trafficking or exploiting their daughter in any way. And after she made this post, and then this lawyer, Atkins and Gempler, made contact with him so he could have his daughter sign this, they said, what's going on? And then there was enough revealed for us to know and for them to see for the first time that something really, really was serious here, and there was something criminal afoot. They did not know. They could not know, as parents wouldn't know, because these people are powerful and clever. And Gisela Medina clearly was somebody that not only was Lazzaro's recruiter, but Gisela Medina was also an enabler and a concealer of Lazzaro and his enterprise. So the parents didn't know, they couldn't know.
Hi, Jeff. Ricardo Lopez here from the Minnesota Reformer. I just wanted if you could clarify the timeline a little bit just from the lawsuit. But it sounds like she had befriended Gisela Medina Castro when she was 14. When did, how old was she, the minor, when the alleged sexual interactions or trafficking?
The trafficking began in May of 2020. She was 16 years old.
She was 16 at the time.
Yes.
And then during the arraignment and detention hearing, there was, I just wanted, assuming you followed that, but I'm just curious if you could shed some light here, because I think his defense attorney had made some sort of allegation about how the family tried to extort money from Lazzaro before going to the police. Does that involve your clients here and
First, I can't, I don't know what their attorney said, but I know what the attorneys they had in July of 2020 tried to do. And what they tried to do was coerce and extort silence. And so I don't know what any other defense lawyer or criminal defense lawyer referred to there, but I know this family hadn't done anything, and I know this family is innocent, and I know this family was victimized, and they had not any knowledge of what had been going on before they, with some help from us, made this report.
Did he pay her for sex, as is alleged to several of the victims in the criminal case?
Well, look at the criminal complaint and the details of it, and the civil complaint set forth the allegations. We're not getting into the details of that. There's both two cases that are now pending, first the criminal and the civil, and there's more to come on really what was done and by whom. We know this. We've already identified 4 individuals, including Lazzaro, as a part of this enterprise, who both either had some knowledge of and or tried to enable it to continue and or silence it. And how many more are actually aware of or participating and or have knowledge of, we don't know, but our investigation continues, and we know the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office continues as we speak.
Maybe you could answer it this way. Was he profiting monetarily through the sex trafficking in any way?
I don't know. I mean, I call him a predatory profiteer, and where he makes his money and how he makes it as it pertains to this enterprise is yet to be fully revealed, and I'm confident we'll have more answers to that question as it is.
The U.S. Attorney's Office during the prosecutors during the detention hearing had made a reference to some type of Pornhub channel, and over the weekend there have been some a Twitter thread that sort of includes screenshots of content that Lazzaro made, via that channel. But does your case, do any of your clients, do they involve any allegations of that type of pornographic discussion?
Right now, we have one client, and it's Minor Doe on behalf, and her parents on behalf of Minor Doe. We know in the indictment there are 6 victims identified anonymously as well. And in terms of the details of what was done, we aren't really sharing that information. We think that that's appropriate for another day, in another way, and another forum. So we're really not making any comments about that, and I think it's not appropriate for us to do so.
Do you need the criminal case to wrap up before you get really going on this one? Or
Well, just as a U.S. attorney in so many cases that we handle in the civil side of it, we work concurrently. We work in parallel efforts. They're assembling data and information. We're assembling data and information. When we get evidence of crimes being committed, or witnesses or whistleblowers or victims, we turn them over to law enforcement, in this case, the U.S. attorney. And we have not engaged in any direct contact with their office, but our investigation is running parallel to theirs right now, and the criminal case will go first. But that doesn't mean we're not on this, and it doesn't mean we're not hunting these folks down as we speak, because we will, and that's what we do.
Could you elaborate a little bit on the types of damages being sought in the case? If you could just kind of walk through that.
Well, look, I don't have to elaborate on the magnitude of the harm that gets done to a child that gets trafficked by a powerful, and prominent political figure such as this. I think it's pretty obvious that it's grave and it's serious, and we're going to leave it at that.
Did other victims, I know you were only representing one, but did other victims come to you subsequently, or were they unearthed by the criminal investigation?
Well, today we speak on behalf of the survivor who is named here as Doe 1, and that family, and they are the ones we represent and from whom we have drawn the inspiration to take this action, and from whom, who had the courage to really start this process and over a year ago that really caused Lazzaro and those affiliated with him in this enterprise to be caught, to be imprisoned, to be behind bars, and to begin the exposure of this sort of enterprise. That's what I can say for today. Thank you all. And most importantly, thank you to this family for their courage. They made a difference. Oh, yeah.